Hey, this is Dr. Drew, and today I want to talk to you about anxiety, which is one of the most common mental health disorders we are currently dealing with at a global level. It's so common that around 1 out of 3 adults at some point are going to be affected by anxiety that affects their day-to-day living. So I want to arm you today with some easy things you can start to implement, some step-by-step approaches, and a lot of natural stuff you can turn to when it comes to anxiety, panic attacks, and all the different variations of anxiety that show up in our lives. It's no doubt way amplified over the last couple years here. We are on the tail end of COVID, but for the last 2.5 years, it's safe to say that the mental health problems and crisis that people are experiencing has gone up significantly. So some of those numbers I even quoted, they're probably going to be on the rise. So with that said, if you're dealing with anxiety or someone you know is experiencing it, this is going to be a little step-by-step playbook approach that you can use to get out of it. One of the first things I like to do with people is try and figure out the triggers. Now, it's not always easy to determine what is causing my anxiety. Sometimes it's just labeled as generalized anxiety because people don't really know what exactly is triggering them. But I'm going to peel back the layers for you here because there's usually some physiologic things at play that you have a lot more control over than you'd like to think. So there's a cool acronym I like to go through with people, and it is HALT. HALT. Now this actually coincides with each of the things that can be potential anxiety triggers. So the first one stands for hungry. What this means is you can't go extremely long hours between eating meals because there's a direct correlation between gut health and brain health. And so if you have inflammation in your digestive tract, that can worsen depression and anxiety. Also with the hunger, if you go long hours between meals and experience blood sugar drops, blood sugar crashes, this can precipitate and worsen or even trigger anxiety or panic attack situations. Make sure you start your day with fat, protein. Never do unopposed carbs. And what I mean by that is don't just snack on carbs by themselves. Don't start your day with a ton of carbohydrates. Always make sure those carbs are opposed by fat or protein and prioritize starting your day with fat and protein. This way your blood sugar is up and stable for the day. It's not going to spike and crash, and that's what happens when you just center your diet around carbs. The protein and fat helps stabilize your blood sugar, prevents drops in it, and prevents these hunger pangs, which can sometimes trigger and precipitate anxiety attacks. The next letter is A. That stands for angry. Sometimes if we're irritable, if we're angry, maybe we had a run-in with someone, maybe there's something we need to get off our chest and we're harboring or holding on to that anger, that energy and emotion, we're going to be way more likely to get launched into either an episode of anxiety or worse, a panic attack. So if there's something you're holding on to, if there's someone you need to confront, if something has made you angry and you haven't actually released that emotion, it can bottle up and become something worse. So that is a big one that not a lot of people are in tune with. So check in on that to see if there's something you're holding on to that you need to get rid of. The next one is L, which is lonely. Now, this is an interesting one because depending who you are, when you're feeling anxious or you're going through a tough time, you may want to hide from people. You may want to go be by yourself. You may not want to be around people. So sometimes this is a counterintuitive one, but it's just that being around people, because we're social creatures, reaching out to someone, confiding in someone, can be super helpful for these scenarios. I understand if you're generally more introverted, you might like to just withdraw a little bit and be lonely in that moment when you're feeling not so great. However, it's important to remember that there are people out there that are always ready and happy to help. So reaching out, making a connection, sending a text message, calling someone, just letting someone know that, hey, I just need to chat with someone right now. That can be huge, okay? Too much loneliness, too much seclusion. We've seen what that has done to people. There's been many people I've spoken to over this last couple of years that going through lockdowns and quarantines in their one-bedroom apartment by themselves for months and months and weeks. You can probably guess what's happened with their mental health. It's not doing too good. We are tribal, community, and social creatures at the end of the day. I understand everyone loves their alone time, but too much can be a problem. So it's sort of something you need to kind of balance and figure out for your characteristics and just how you are as a person and your personality. So that was the L. Now we're moving into T. T stands for tired. And the old saying is a good laugh and a long sleep cures a lot of what ails you. And there is a lot of truth to that. If you're feeling crappy, you had a bad day, you feel like you're on the edge of either, an anxiety or a panic attack, quite often you just have to check in. Have I slept enough? Do I just need to have a nap and then reassess what's going on? This can be powerful. And a lot of people walk around in a fog and a haze because they haven't slept enough. We are chronically depriving ourselves of that. And this is another piece that could just throw gas on the fire of anxiety and make it a whole lot worse. So you need to prioritize your sleep, 7 to 8 hours each night. I've done extensive videos on this entire topic. So if you're having trouble with sleep, just click the link below because we'll make sure to link over to that video. That's when you recharge. That's when you consolidate memories. That's when you heal your body. That's when you repair damaged tissue. That's when you drain your brain. And so this is all vital if you want to function and operate at a high level. So that's the HALT: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Make sure you're looking after those and checking in on those. If you're feeling a wave of anxiety come on, HALT, see what's off, and then try and remedy it as quickly as you can. This also leads into exercise for mental health. We know it's been studied at length. If you could put exercise in a pill, it would be the #1 selling anti-anxiety and antidepressant medication on the market. Trouble is, they can't do that. So enter your anti-anxiety, your antidepressants, and the prescription drugs are usually what are thrown at cases like this. But I want to remind you that exercise is the most potent anti-anxiety medication you can take. That's why I love weight training. You need to blow off steam. When you're feeling the anxiety, whether it's in the chest or the stomach or the body, and that's always a good thing to do too, do a body scan to see where it is so you can kind of breathe into that area. But also that's a way of your body trying to get that emotion and that energy out. So shaking it out through exercise is one of the best options. I love resistance training. Most people should be aiming for 3 to 4 sessions a week of resistance training. You should be sweating every day, walking every day, throwing the resistance training and cardio on top of that. It's a good recipe to keep your mental health in order. First thing in the morning would also be the best time to do it. Later in the day or midday or late is great, sure, as long as you're getting it in, but priority earlier in the day if possible. Which also brings me to morning routines and how we start our day. It's really easy if you don't have control of your morning, if you don't have proper tasks, duties, and responsibilities that you're checking off one by one, if you don't have a plan, if you don't have structure, it's really easy for the day to just spiral away from you. And then before you know it, you're like, I don't have any control over my day. I don't have any control over my body. And that can, again, worsen anxiety attacks. There's a little checklist, again, I like to go through with people, and it's the 3 C's. And I got this from one of my awesome coaches, Craig Ballantyne. And the first one is control your morning. Have a structure to your morning that involves time for you, time for learning, time for exercise, time for proper meals. Don't be in a rush. Don't hit the snooze button. If you can kind of control your morning and have structure around it, then you have a good chance at winning the day. And then you want to conquer the afternoon. So make sure your tasks, duties, responsibilities, the things you need to do for work, there's a systematic approach to it. It's not just haphazard. Let's just deal with what comes at me. Let's just put out fires. No. You have a list and things you need to work from that are your top priorities. This is how you achieve your goals and dreams and everything that you're striving for. So you gotta have some structure around that so you can conquer the afternoon. And then you really always have to remember concentrating on what counts. So not getting caught with distractions, not working on low priority tasks, making sure you're working on high priority tasks. There's a saying that action beats anxiety, motion beats meditation, and work beats worry. When you're focused on things that you're passionate about, that you enjoy doing, that you get a charge and sort of enjoyment from, it's really hard to be anxious in those moments. I follow a lot of Grant Cardone's stuff, and he's actually is a struggling addict. One of the most enlightening terms and quotes that he shared regarding addictions, mental health, anxiety, and depression was, if you have too much white space in the calendar, the devil will come meet you there. And what that means is if you have a ton of gaps in the day where you're not focused on, like I said, high priority tasks, things that you need to get done, things you're passionate about, work that is fulfilling to you. If you don't have enough of that in the calendar and there's just a ton of white space, guess what? Things will come meet you there, and it's usually not the right stuff. It's going to be those anxiety attacks. It's going to be second guessing yourself. It's going to be reaching for the wrong stuff. It's going to be, mindless snacking. It's potentially going to be drug use and all that kind of stuff. That stuff can kind of creep in and you don't even really realize it, but too much white space in the calendar, not enough structure, boom, that's what you're kind of going to be left with. So I also want to go through kind of a 4-step approach here, because I like to give people action items and things they can do so that when you feel like action is striking or you feel like it's coming on, what are some easy things that you can do? One of the first things is, if you're inside a building, a house, whatever it is, if you're inside, one of the first things you need to do is get outside, and get outside right away. The four walls that surround us can really feel like it's caving in sometimes. So if it's cement walls, that's not really natural. Painted walls of materials that they build houses of, also not really natural. So that can feel like a really constricting box. So if you're inside, the first thing you can do with anxiety when it strikes is get outside right away. Fresh air, green, blue, colors of nature. When that hits your eyes, it's very soothing. And then the fresh air versus the stale air inside, that alone can sometimes stop an anxiety attack dead in its tracks. You also want to get out of your head, and this goes back to what I was touching on earlier, is just reach out to someone. Don't try and have this conversation with yourself. Bring someone else in. Just text someone, call someone, FaceTime someone. And you don't even necessarily tell them what's going on, but just getting a dialogue going can be enough to sort of distract. And if it is someone you confide in, you can also say, hey, this is what I'm going through right now. I just need someone to talk to and hang out for a sec. There'll be lots of people you can think of right away that you can reach out and have help with. So number 3 is get connected in a physical way, if at all possible. That's physical touch with a human or an animal. Animals are awesome for this. Cats and dogs. I'm a big fan of pets and having them around the home because they just love unconditionally. They're amazing companions. If you had a bad day or you need a mental health pickup, they are so awesome. So hug a pet, squeeze a pet, cuddle with one. Same thing with humans. Physical touch is super important. Cuddling, hugging, sexual intimacy, that all releases those good endorphins and oxytocin, and we just feel so much better in those scenarios. So utilize the physical touch. This is super important as well. And then the next one is alcohol and caffeine. So caffeine, if you're anxious, caffeine can trigger anxiety. It can make it a whole lot worse. So if you start your day with a coffee and then, mid-morning you're having another, and then after lunch you're having another, no wonder the anxiety is running out of control. Caffeine is a central nervous system stimulant, and it will wire you. If you're already an anxious person, I would highly recommend just eliminating caffeine altogether. Alcohol is interesting. Alcohol is an interesting coping mechanism. So what it'll do is it'll delay anxiety in the moment. Say you had a long day, feeling anxious. Come home, glass of wine, kills anxiety in the moment, but what it does is it delays it to the next day and then it amplifies it. So you get this huge rebound effect where in the moment really helps bring you down, kills the anxiety. Now you can kind of drift off for the rest of the night, go to bed, then boom, you are at way more risk for having an anxiety attack the next day. And anxiety attacks can be scary, and panic attacks. People think they're dying. People think they're having a heart attack. A lot of people end up in the ER room with this kind of stuff. These substances that we have easy access to, caffeine and alcohol, be very careful if you have an anxiety disorder, okay? And then the last piece for the checklist is when you're feeling an anxiety attack or potentially something coming on is fix your breathing. Now, I don't pretend to be a breath expert. There's lots of books on this, but looking into diaphragmatic breathing and box breathing, because you can actually take control of your physiology if you learn how to breathe properly. And if you feel something coming on, or you're in a moment or a situation that you feel like something's about to happen, you can just bring it back to the breath. And that's when the central nervous system can relax, your parasympathetics can upregulate. And this is huge because people's breathing patterns will change when they're dealing with a stressful situation. So bring it back to the breath. You have a lot more control over your physiology than you think. And these are awesome tools for anxiety. Now I want to go through a few remedies and treatments that I found useful over the years that are alternatives to medications, because those are handed out like candy. The big thing with meds is they're usually not given with an exit strategy. So people will be prescribed medications. There's no exit strategy. It's just like, all right, let's just keep the person on this indefinitely. So if you're going through a really rough time, they can definitely get you through rough patches. A few months up to maybe even a year. Makes sense if there's an exit strategy talked about, but that has to be put in place as well at the same time. These are the conversations you want to have with your doctor. So don't ever feel like you can't ask. If someone wants to pose or pitch something to you, you can always turn and say, okay, how long are you thinking? Then what? Is there any alternatives? Okay, if I do this for 3 or 6 months, like what does our exit strategy look like? These are the kind of things you want to start to ask your doctor about, because these are good questions to have. That's the quick and dirty on the medications. Natural stuff. GABA and L-theanine. Now, GABA is an inhibitory neurotransmitter, and it works on the entire nervous system, so it can relax the body and mind. The cool thing is doesn't leave you feeling groggy. And L-theanine, also a nice relaxing herbal extract, is from green tea, but it doesn't have any caffeine or stimulant effects. And wonderful combination. We use a liposomal GABA with L-theanine, and I've had people with generalized anxiety take a few pumps of that in the morning, and they can tackle the day, and they just feel so much more level without any highs and lows, no butterflies in the stomach, no tightness in the chest. Incredible. It can also be used at night to wind down the body in preparation before bed. So usually I'll give the GABA L-theanine combos, a couple sprays in the morning and then a couple in the evening. Wonderful combination for anxiety. Passion flower extracts as well as chamomile teas are two other really good herbs. Acupuncture can be a wonderful treatment as well. So that's the insertion of tiny needles throughout the body into various spots. This allows you to just lay 30 to 45 minutes with the needles, let them do their work. Can be a wonderful option for anxiety. And then body work in general. So massages helps with any muscle tension you have throughout your body, lymphatic drainage. And then of course with that comes some chiropractic manipulation as well. So if there's any fixations up and down the spine, in the neck or back, getting some hands-on treatments can be wonderful for this kind of stuff, okay? So if you're dealing with anxiety, I hope you found this helpful. If you know someone close to you that's dealing with it that would benefit from this, please share it with them. And if you have any questions, just drop a comment below. And as always, thank you for watching.